Alright, good evening everybody, System Chalk here with the 221st episode of our first run through Book of Hours playing as the artist. And I've got to admit, if I recall correctly, I really liked going through Numa, and so I did Monday's episode sort of early, and sort of that was with the intention of maybe trying to keep the distance a little bit closer, and that's failed here. So the usual Monday confusion has now been switched to Wednesday's episode, but we'll get through it. It's also Labor Day, so it's kind of nice to just have sort of Monday's episode in the bank. So let's catch up. First of all, I think I wonder if I can figure out, it's the affair of the second skin. I can't remember who I'm talking to. Alright, I'm going to settle for letting that be, and we will review the affair of the second skin on a separate occasion. Now we are halfway through the day. I'm going to quickly pause and unpause just so I can bring up any timers. So I'm curing my Foss. That would be, I think that's in response to Numa, so that's fine. We've got a couple of edicts martial. Oh dear, alright, what was I trying to level up? Okay, so apparently I'm trying to bring Great Signs and Great Scars up. One thing that I forgot to do here was bring up my Excel sheet, so just give me a quick minute here. Oh, hang on. No, it wasn't on that sheet. It was on my tablet. I forgot. I lost some of the data before. I should have been a little more organized getting started, but I thought I had a bit more. I thought I had a little bit more than I actually did. Now, if I recall correctly, I also have Hyksos. At some point, I was going to level that up, but let's just see. So, Great Signs and Great Scars. We wanted to get that to level 8. Which, okay, we're going to accomplish that here. It might be an idea for me to just wait this out so that I can see the rest. I'm actually really trying to remember what I was going to do with Edicts Martial and Menascate Reflection, so it would not be a bad idea for me to just set these things aside and prep. Okay, Durashu Quercum is so that I can get the Earth Signs back. I'm assuming we maybe use that in here. Guess not. What else? I think that's it. I'm also currently not using the Sweet Bones. Well, I suppose that makes sense because we've already got so much money. I don't really need to work with that. So I think I know what I'm going to do. So at this point, so there may actually be some value in me talking with Mr. or Mrs. Kill. What have we got? So technically I have the most Arab here. Oh wait, Mrs. Kill's already part of the group. So we can keep talking with her to get memories. And yeah, at this point, so there's two sets of things that I can see myself working with. One of them would be trying to level up, I'm going to be leveling up the skills that are sort of at the 8 or 9 level, just so I can get those out of the way, and the next time we run into a Numa, I will be, I'm going to be focusing on the low-level items. Now, one drawback about that is that I'm going to have fewer elements of the soul than I would under other circumstances, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just going to set that aside, and we'll worry about it later. And then I suppose the secondary consideration would be restoring all of my persistent memories and the sorts of things that I would use in a Numa to be able to level up everything up, to give myself like a nice head start in terms of all of the different skills that I would be working with. So with all that in mind, let's just, I'm going to let the timers run down, and then we can figure out the next steps. I also feel like I should have some Hyksos books, which, unless we've read all of them, there's definitely the Child's Treasury of Golden Afternoons to be handled. Oh, we got one here. This one we are reading, but we have not completed the Book of Maya. Maybe one thing I can do here is take a look for Hyksos. Okay, so the Ascendant has been read. We had Book of Maya, and I thought there was one other that I was waiting on. I'd feel a little bit better if I knew that it was accounted for. Okay, so there's the Ascendant, Westcott Room. I don't see any here. The Reading Room, again, I don't see any. That could be there were 2 books and I'm forgetting. Yeah, it could be that there were 2 books and then the third was the one with the Newman. Okay. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time thinking about it. It's just I'm trying to keep track of everything. So the Affair of the Second Skin. Oh, we're probably talking with Dr. Ibn Aladim. Immortals change more slowly than most of us, but even immortals change sometimes. In the city of Marrakesh, the Labite Abykassis has begun a dramatic and dangerous metamorphosis, one that's alarming friends and enemies alike. Now, I'm going to just move through the dialogue here because I don't remember exactly where everything was going. The Labite Abykassis of Marrakesh has begun to, let us be tactful here, to behave without decorum. I wish to understand why. Echidna, the Legion, she who suckles serpents. Yes, I am aware that serpents do not generally suckle. I believe now that Abykassis has chosen to drink of what she provides. I do not know if there is anything to be done about that. But thank you, librarian. Okay, so here we have the Affair of the Second Skin. We had Azita, the edgelong. Azita's eternal enemy twin Murad planned to give Abykassis death with honor. With regret, Azita set out to prevent this. Lala Kaima set out to end Abykassis' misery, although her ultimate intention remained uncertain even to her. Fraser Strathcoyne hoped but did not expect to shield Abykassis from his hunters. Lieutenant Moore resolved to take Abykassis into the custody of the Labyrinth of Lions, and the Alapine came to believe that Abykassis had accepted gifts of sustenance from she who suckles serpents. So if I want the... Actually, there's no reason not to add Aladim to the writing case, unless we don't have the writing case, but I think I put that in the librarian's quarters. Yes, there it is. We will find... Oh, Nona's desk. Oh, I'm fixing the snare of the tree, right. That's why my earth sign was missing. Alright, so this is just a nice little occult, scrap. Now, I'll confess, I knew that this was coming in House of Light, and I don't know if this is because I've been using the House of Light beta in the other playthroughs, or this has just been added to the base game now, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to add Aladim and friends as the need arises. Although, of course, we have all our languages now, so I'm not as worried about being able to access some of the things I wanted. Okay. Great signs and great scars. Some glyphs are too obscure to reside in any language, but too potent to remain unwritten. So I'm going to take a minute here and just reflect on where we are in terms of my the items that I'm leveling up. So if I take a look at where I was, yeah, Great Signs and Great Scars is at level 8. So one way that I can look at this is I can look at the items that are going to the highest level. So I believe at this point it's level 8 for most of the things that I'm working on. And then the next thing that I want to work on is not just see where the destination for these items are. So for instance, here I would have Strings and Songs, which is going to go from 5 to 6. Now that's not trivial, but that's not... or actually an even better example here would be Wolf Stories. So this goes from 4 to 7. And then I can compare that with pentiments and precursors. So in addition to the fact that pentiments and precursors is going up to level 8, the higher level, it also starts at a higher level. So the reason why I want to do it this way is that if I wind up in another Pneuma, I can bang out a lot of really low-level ones. So for instance, a big journey that I'm going to have would be something like Snow Stories, which needs to go from 4 to 7. But in going from 4 to 7, you know, if I can get a couple of Pneuma, like if I can sort of break up one of the skills and use those lessons to be able to distribute a few more lessons to just get everything moved up, it would be nice to be able to just sort of move up to a higher level before I start using up those precious lessons. So again, we'll see how it goes, but the ones that I'm looking at here, so we've got Edicts Inviolable, Strings and Songs, and Sea Stories, and Pentiments and Precursors. Okay, so Pentiments and Precursors and Sea Stories are actually the ones with the... they're going from 6 to 8. So with Pentiments and Precursors, that's a Grail and Scale. And neither of those are really helped. I think I did this before as well. So those, unfortunately, because they're Grail and Scale, don't offer me anything that I can work with in terms of Meniscate Reflections and Edicts Martial. And then if I take a look at... There should have been another 6 and 8. Sea Stories, I think we have a similar story, although the Moon will help on this one. Yeah, so we can take Edicts Martial, use that to level up Sea Stories if I want. And in fact, that will give me the 2 that I need, so there's something even more tempting about doing that particular one. So moving on from there, I need Meniscate Reflections, so I'm out of 6 to 8s on this one. So then I would maybe consider something where I'm going from 5 to 8, so that would be Strings and Songs, which in this case I think Strings and Songs doesn't allow me to use the Meniscate Reflections. Oh, well, we have Meniscate Reflections, whereas Strings and Songs, though. There we go. Yeah, so that's a Heart and Sky. We have Edicts Inviolable. So this one's a little bit tricky because this is a Heart and Moon. So in theory, Edicts Inviolable also would apply where Sea Stories get applied. We have Auroral Contemplations going from 5 to 7. So this one I think is tempting because of its edge element. So yeah, I think what we'll wind up doing here will be Sea Stories and then Auroral Contemplations. So of course the obvious question following is how do I make all this happen? So it's all well and good for me to sort of set this stuff aside, but I actually kind of need to deliver on it now. So if we're going to be moving Sea Stories up to level 8, first of all, I'm going to adjust the... Well, I will eventually adjust, but we need 6 with Grail or Moon. So we've got the Contradiction and the Old Wound already. So let's grab some things that I kind of get for free. So with that in mind, I can use the Whist to get Assault. Let's use the Kukurbet Prisoner Records on that one. Stolen Secrets. Well, I guess we had that already. Now that's technically something that Mrs. Kill can get me, but I'm gonna take a run with it. This one needs Fusine, so we'll carry on there. So that gives us 4 of what we need. Beguiling Melody seems like a good one to hang on to, so that would be... I actually think that's on the other side of the... Yeah, so let's do Skeleton Songs. So that should be 5 of the 6 that I require. Oh, the Sand Stories... Hang on. Yeah, so they're Moon and Rose, which means that Edicts Inviolable can be leveled up there as well. Okay, we're still good to go. We've already got the contradiction. I could get a Newman, I suppose. Or I could just go for the satisfaction. I think I'll probably go for the satisfaction on this one. There is always that chance that we wind up... there's always a chance that we wind up with something that Mrs. Kill generates for me, but I feel like I have more... I kind of have more that I can do. Sorry, I have more elements of the soul than I really know what to do with in a given day. So in this case, I think we'll push ahead. And this one requires Kilisimi. I'm sure there's a few more books that I can read, but let's just work with what we've got here. Okay, Derecha Quercum. The English title translates roughly as The Account of Oaks, but this is Nathaniel Darcy Evers' fascinating, if haphazard, survey of the occult properties of every tree that he can find, not just oaks. In Persia, Taxus Picata, the yew, is called Sorkdar, which is the red tree. Here they had long understood the Grail root. In later times, the great king of Pontus had beehives set in the branches of the oldest of the female trees. The berries of the Pontine yew open the door to death, but the honey of their flowers opens a different door entirely. This is not the great king's Mithridate, but one who has suckled at the great yew fears poison no longer. Perhaps they should. Nathaniel is here distracted, however, by the toxic properties of certain inks. He does mention, more usefully, that the minor ink of power yew-gall can be brewed through rites of the roots with the assistance of the aspect nectar. So again, we really just wanted the earth sign out of this. And we'll keep talking with Mrs. Kill, but at the moment I'm going to just focus on getting what I need for sea stories, and then we'll sort of get to the next level. And I imagine that I will be getting some more lessons to play around with in a little bit. Alright, there was that satisfaction I was talking about. There 'tis in Camino Tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. One other thing I can do with all my elements of the soul is brew all this surplus tea and cocoa that I've got sitting around, but we are going to be using these elements of the soul to level things up for the better part of the next couple of days, so probably should just cool it on that. Alright, another satisfaction. Alright, the Kukurbit prisoner records, 1928, accounts by Governor Collar's private secretary of interventions and experiments in the last years of the Kukurbit prison, focusing particularly on the hill children, wild wood things that have found a shape in the physical world. Something called a Singlefoot, a horned mountain dweller, is brought back from some kind of embassy to the Grove of Green Immortals. Collars expresses his irritation that Gervinus van Loren refuses to assist in its containment. The Singlefoot somehow conjures an earthquake that cracks the tower and enables its escape. Collars determines that it should not have been permitted to dream while kept beneath the earth. It had access to sufficient scale aspect to use its arts of hill and hollow to develop an old moment into an earthquake name. He mandates above-ground confinement for all hill children prisoners in the future. So here we've got the salt. And I keep forgetting to check for the little notes here. So I'll run through this episode, but I think I'll maybe just reset the game when I... in between episodes here. So, Deaths and Their Evasions. Father Stanislav John Schaller writes of the means and limitation of passage between the orders of the Mansus. No long names, hours. Unusually, Father John has written this book in Fucine for, he says, especial secrecy. He speaks very cautiously of the exceptions that can sometimes be made to the edicts of Chancel and Calyptra, and hints at the means by which he successfully returned a lantern long to flesh. Schaller mentions most cautiously of all that he has been permitted to see a book that speaks more deeply on the matter, but that it was surrendered into the shadow of a covenant stone of the Watchman's Tree. It can be retrieved if the 99th wink is reserved under the edict's liminal. And that was the one that sort of cracked open a puzzle that I had been basically dwelling on. It wasn't the last one. In fact, it was this particular playthrough was the one that finally brought my attention to what might be the last of the mysteries of the house. But the 3 in the 3, the Saint Chiavi manuscript, that is actually one that I'd struggled to find for a while. The Skeleton Songs, poems of greedy delight composed by the possibly pseudonymous Arbella Dusk, the rumored heiress turned madam turned poetess. In Arbella's introduction, she explains that the book was to be illustrated and that the Suppression Bureau would not permit it. She hints that the illustration still exists somewhere. The book is dedicated to Sir Parsifal of the Red Cup. The 26 delightful fruits, the 7 chastisements, the 9 gardens, the 4 regrets. Beguiling melody, a sweet enchantment of a song. The wonderful shape, blessings, and invocations of the triple knot recorded at a sanctuary in Cyprus, notable for its weavers, sculptors, and gardeners. The roots go deep, the knots remain. The final invocation is one for the restoration of the roots, to be spoken before an altar of the triple knot, but puzzlingly, it should not be spoken by any priestess of the knot, or even by one who has been initiated into their mysteries. This, of course, was its own clue to a treasure of the house that we got earlier down in this room. Time, peace, recovery. So it's still fatigued, but it's nice to have a working Faust again. And again, because I'm sort of locked into checking out these desks on their own, I'm going to do a quick patrol around the house to make sure I didn't leave anything undone. Thirza Blake theorized that Keeperskin was a debased carapace kind, or perhaps its young, but she never could convince it to speak. So here we have phosphorescent scrapings. I'm trying to remember, I think it was somebody who commented on the videos here, so I apologize for not remembering the name directly, but I remember someone mentioned that they kept allowing books to be infected because they wanted the materials that they could get from the from removing the curse, and this just absolutely horrified me. I must confess I forget what we get from Snare of the Tree, so this one isn't that big of a hardship. I'll just grab the Arab here and read the book. But yeah, I admire, I mean, this is a little bit like me always using Perinculate to write my order forms for Cater and Hero. It's something that to outside observers is horrifying and you shouldn't do it, but it is practical and or amusing, and I imagine that is the same for the the cursed books. But come on, man. You can't do that. All right, let's get Edicts Martial leveled up. Or sorry, let's rearrange things. So Sea Stories is ultimately going to become a level 8. Actually, let's just take a minute here and move everything where it needs to be. So that will also be true of... Oh, I'm glad I checked that. It was Edicts Inviolable. Okay, yeah, so it's this one. I hope Applebright, yeah, Applebright Euphonies is where it needs to be. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And yeah, I will use the old wound in this case. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Improve the skill to level 7. So there's a couple of things that I can do right away just to help out. So one would be to use my Edicts Martial to get the old wound back. And then, of course, the next thing is to prep myself for the next level in terms of Sea Stories. So for that, we'll just head right back to... I'm going to keep that tryst, actually. Don't really want to mess with the Arabs, so in this case, given that... Well, we can use the metal, actually. So let's just go top to bottom again. So we read Kukurbit prisoner records, so we'll read the Larkabine Codex here. There's always a danger here that I'm going to be doubling up the work with Mrs. Kill. In this case, I guess I have to use Faust. I've kind of used up all my whist. Okay. So just reminding myself I need Grail or Moon in this case. Now, if I want, I actually have the option of reading some... oh, that's right! It was the open head that I was supposed to read, and that gives me Disciplines of the Scar. It's a little late in the day for me to do this, but this gives me Foresight or Revelation, neither of which I need for my current... it's a little surprising, actually. Neither of which I currently need. Said I was leaving my... Alright, I don't think there's much I can do with... I could use the health, maybe, but... Let's just push ahead. As the sun is course, so that's going to get me the contradictions. I can use the FET for... What do I want to use the FET for? Intuitions gives me a moon. Let's start with a... Confounding Parable. And we'll get the Beguiling Melody again. Now, I think I've used up too many of the desks for me to have enough to like fully do the level up, but we've at least got a good start for the day. Let me just see if there's any other idle desks. It's really just the reading room, so actually in this case I will take the... we can use the core, actually. No, health is slightly better. Okay, so... And I guess if I'm... Secret Thresholds might give us a hand. We can give it a shot, at least. And then this is a new book for us, so I can... I'll have some new material to read before the end of the episode. Alright, that's normally the hurry up sound. Now I've gone and done it. Alright, here we go. The Book of Maya, an account of the 5 visits to... an account of the 5 visits of the Desert Wanderer, probably the hour called the Vagabond, to the city Maya. She begins as a delighted child, perhaps even a mortal, but things then go badly. In her second visit, she came as Laughing Thrush. Her heart was bright within, her beak was ripe with song. But, in the first moment, her feathers touched the city stones, the laughter began. The Wanderer's penultimate visit is as Centipede, whose venom cracks stone. Maya is abandoned to the desert, but she returns one last time again as Laughing Thrush, with 4 other hours who take the shape of birds, to celebrate the first roost above the bones of her hated kin. So we got intuition for that, so a bit lucky on my part for not doubling up the texts. Feels right to put that beside the Book of the Centipede. I don't think we have any other texts to be playing around with right now. We're not going to do anything with Sand Stories until after we've sort of handled Menescape Reflections and such. The skill is now level 7. Its power aspects have also increased. Although I should probably be thinking about what I'm going to do to get the relevant memories. So let me just take a quick second and see. So we got 1 of 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we're just making it to 7. I think for security what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my tea. I'm going to drink a witching tisane. Drink the stuff. This will consume the beverage. If it's a whole bottle, consider serving it first so you don't drink the whole thing. And then just as a sort of a follow-up, we can use the health, desires, and dissolutions to craft a witching tisane. No point in trying to make... actually, depending on the time, it's a little risky. I think I'll make the Wormwood Dream all the same. So the possibility here is that my Tryst winds up used up overnight, but again, we've got lots of elements of the soul, so I probably should be a little less cautious. Alright, that gossip's helpful. I think I avoided getting the gossip, so that gives us an extra element of the soul for the next day. Move gingerly while the pain lasts. So here I really just need to stick any old memory in. Well, any old memory that will fit, so I think that's the regret in this case. I do, however, need to provide more moon. Alright, so that complicates things a little bit. And I need 3. So I don't have any more... Okay. Yeah, so I actually overestimated my capabilities here. I can probably put it together with the old wound and then, you know, adding in some other item. But I think I'd rather just hang on to the old wound and then we can make it tomorrow. Okay, the taste is like a lingering kiss at the mouth's edge. The origins of hours. The sage and ecstatic Soham, a frequent visitor to the Mansis, claimed to have discoursed with the beach crow in person. Soham later insisted on a sky burial. Soham's writings veer from poetry to confession. He identifies from flesh, those who were mortal, from blood, those who arose from sacrifice, from light, entry from the glory, and from stone, those who arose before his knowledge. He insists that the moth was the first god who was blood, but later contradicts himself and claims it was the Red Grail. The Mansis was different before the first god came from light, but never doubt that it existed, even then. So it looks like, for one reason or another, we have overwritten what we would get from Origins of the Hours. I imagine that that's probably the Snare of the Tree doing that. As the sun is coarse, Joel of the Bridge, a retired soldier and sometimes tollkeeper, wrote this epic poem about Alexander's famously inexplicable decision at Issus to withdraw from the war with the Achaemenids and his subsequent return to Macedonia. Alexander meets at Issus with Darius, king of kings, for 3 days and 3 nights. On the first day, the two men trade threats. On the second, promises. On the third, secrets. Darius tells Alexander something so shattering that he retires to his tent to consider matters of strength and matters of mastery. At dawn on the 4th day, Alexander announces the sun has his course upon which he returns, and so do I. He returns to Macedonia, executing 2 of his captains when they dispute his decision. He brings with him the names of a blind god and a rite of sacred betrayal, for Joel opines without betrayal there would be an end to war. An Almanac of Entrances, a handbook of sealed and unsealed byways and shortcuts through the bounds, compiled by Willem Harries in the 1860s during his term as librarian of Hush House. Harries discusses the role played by the Legion de Sul in the company of the Wolf and Gold in warding the bounds against outside influences. He warns that bounds travelers may themselves be considered outside influences. The Mansis, as Ys, lacks walls, and Ys and the Mansis have both their gates, and there may be no gate without a wall. Thus the paradox resolves, as all those who walk and dream will learn, that the wood has neither gate nor wall, and so it is the wood whose roots may creep after us into the hours of our waking. Alright, the secret threshold does not actually help me here, so I'm glad that we got the bonus from Mrs. Kill. It's not easy to draw our own doors, but it's not impossible. We have... The Wind's Ruin, the second volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of his time as a raider, when his name was not Thomas but Toke, scything the sea, striving for plunder. Abbot Thomas clearly regrets his storm years, and much of the book is taken up with his thoughts on penitence, but there are hints that he also misses those years, and the companionship of his sword brother, ship brother, Trygev. Okay... It's a little tricky for me to try and remember where everything is. So the snare of the tree collected proverbs about Mopsy. Once in the wood we call a visit, twice in the wood we call a journey, thrice we call coming home. Every timber has its knots, the straight and crooked both. Every weave is more absence than thread. You can't keep nowhere out any more than you can keep somewhere in. When the cuckoo learns the nightingale's song, our sleep is sweeter than honey. So, as expected, there's the confounding parable, which I imagine is actually going to make life a little tricky to fit everything in. Oh, nope, we're still good. Okay, again, I want to get a proper accounting of all the desks. So, callers, check. Nona, check. Vagabond, reading room, Westcott, we're making a witching to Sane. Regensburg, desk. Alright. The account of Kanishk at the spider's door. Loch Cowley, Kanishk's victim and lover, wrote this account, perhaps posthumously. Kanishk sought to become a name. In pursuit of that end, he made Loch Cowley the vessel of his appetites, promising Loch that they would ascend together. At the spider's door, he betrayed his lover. The Chiliarch listened to it happen and then forced Kanishk into his service. The Chiliarch cannot be denied. Loch Cowley remained to write this work and to describe the outer magics of struggle and contest. So, Stolen Secrets, definitely a welcome addition here. And finally, the Larkabine Codex. Christopher Larkabus claims to have purchased 2 handwritten copies of the Codex from family of witches on the shores of the Sea of Marmara. A third was given to the sea. The sister and witch came from the west, where they were born in 2 wombs, one a princess, one a monster. Nevertheless, they loved each other from birth and met in secret to seek union. When the great drought came, the kings of that land tried to sacrifice the princess and the witch, so they sailed across the sea. When despair took them, they flung themselves into the drowning waters, and so found the Painted River, where they entered the Mansis through the offices of the Red Grail. Nevertheless, the Codex ends with a condemnation of the Grail. So, let's get things leveled up. Before we go any further, we want to sort of accomplish our main goal. I'm really curious what's determining the order in here. We want to get our main goal of leveling up Sea Stories to level 8, so we'll add the Arab here. We will add the Edicts Martial that we were using before. Feels a little weird to do that. I kind of think like this... You know what? I'm losing my nerve. Use the Sand Story instead. So, Beguiling Mail, Memory, Taste, Gossip. So you'll notice there's a specific order in which I'm doing these things, and that's because Grail is unique to the Sea Stories, whereas for the rest of these, what I'm really looking for is the Moon. So if I can hang on to the Moon as much as possible, and specifically on those things that maybe I can sort of rely on someone like Mrs. Kill to generate for me, that's ideal. But again, I'm not gonna move like heaven and earth to make sure that I keep all of these memories. These things exist to be used. So we'll use the Intuition, the Stolen Secret, and I think we'll do Salt and Contradiction in this case. So at last I approach Mastery, improve the skill to level 8. And I will just take a quick second here to change my notes because we are at the end, and if there winds up being a situation where I have to step away, I don't want to create any problems for myself. So yeah, taking a look at where the playthrough is right now, I think tomorrow what we're going to do is move... looks like Edicts Inviolable really was the next best that I had, although we should maybe just double check here with Pentiments and Precursors. I think that was a grail and a scale, so because we don't have any scale, yeah, there's nothing we can do about that one. So at this point, it's actually Edict's Inviolable, which wants to go from 5 to 8. So in theory, I can actually move the whole distance. Wasn't quite what I was planning on doing. Oh no, we can't do the whole distance. We use Edict's Martial for these two, but we are still going to take care of Auroral Contemplations. Still, it's the highest level one that I have to work with now. There aren't any more levels. Sorry, Pentiments and Precursors is the last level 6. So, you know, I'll work with what I've been given. But of course, all that will happen in a future episode. Thank you very much for watching. We are definitely in the next few going to be leveling some things up, and then I did want to get to some of the endgame material, but I want to get to that endgame material after I deal with the existing Hyksos books to read. So in this case, this will be the Open Head, at which point we will then read the last Hyksos book, The Child's Treasury of Golden Afternoons, and that's when we start transitioning into some of the endgame material. So for those of you that have been waiting to see what the endgame looks like, your time is about to come. So see you in the next one.